And so this morning in class, or this afternoon, wherever you're joining from, we're going to work with the hips a bit. And the hips are, well, we love them or we have issues in the hips, and they tend to be a place where we store a lot of energy or emotion that's hard to move. We also have a lifestyle that's fairly, even those of us, probably everybody on this call, we move a lot, but we're a more sedentary lifestyle still. We don't work all day on the farm or um, with animals, and we get tight in our hips. So we're going to work in the hips a bit. We'll do some stabilizing and some lengthening and stretching. And we work in yoga in opposites. So we do a lot of asymmetrical movement in order to work on becoming um, more whole or more unified or more symmetrical. So if you would start on your back and get comfortable there, just some things for you to uh, assimilate in your body this morning, a little bit of invitation. So as you inhale, so the inhale is generally an expansive movement, and the exhale is a grounding movement. So play for just a little bit as you breathe. On your inhale, as you expand through the rib cage, through the central cylinder of the body, can you feel grounded? And as you exhale, and you have that generally grounded feeling, can you also feel expansion? So working a little bit with that opposite energy or opposite dimension. Continue lengthening your inhale and exhale. And again, as you inhale and you feel the expansion through your body, can you also connect to some grounding? And we are working in hips today, so maybe that could be the intention or the attention in your hips, where your hips are touching the floor. And as you exhale, which is the naturally grounding cycle of the breath, part of the breath cycle, can you also feel expansion? And now I'm going to invite you to another different place of opposites. So bring your attention to the inner landscape of your body. And feel, it's that felt sense we talk about in yoga, feel your body in as many pieces as possible. So central to this collection of pieces is this unifying interdependence. So now feel your body as one whole, an integrated whole. In that integrated whole, can you feel individual pieces? Where else in your life do you experience these paradoxes? If you're not, if you don't have your legs long, go ahead and stretch your legs long now on the mat and feel for the middle of your heels touching the floor. You can leave your arms beside you, or you could interlace your hands under your head. Just get comfortable here in this sort of Shavasana, Tadasana shape. And then let's stretch the arms overhead. So the back of your hands touch the floor behind you, if that works for your shoulders. If you have very tight shoulders, you could keep your hands interlaced underneath your head or come to goalpost arms. But now pull your toes back towards your shins and stretch through your right heel and feel the right hip slip down as the left hip slips up. And then release that and press through the left heel. So toes, all 10 toes are pulling back towards your shins, and you'll simply slide the right heel down. You'll feel the right hip slide down, and left hip will slide up, and then press through the left heel and slide. We call this the up slip, down slip, and you could put your hands, your fingers on your hip pointers, the bony part in the front of your pelvis, and you can really feel that movement. So just waking up slowly the more subtle energies and maybe the subtle holding in your hips. And then as you come back to center, just feel for an evenness. Hands could be on the hip pointers to feel that, but feel for an even resting on your buttocks. And then you'll lift the right sit bone up towards, so it's a little bit of a twist as you lift just your right buns, your right buttocks off the floor, and then set that back down, and then lift your left buttocks. So your leg, your heels remain on the floor. You're not lifting the leg. You're just doing a teeny bit of almost of a twist as you lift right buttocks off the floor, and that hip will lift off the floor, and then set yourself back down. Lift your left buttocks off the floor. Okay, and if you need a visual, I think I've got a pretty good setup here for you to pop up and look. So just back and forth, lifting one buttocks, heels stay on the floor, and then the other. And that'll take some effort in your back muscles. Just a couple more times on each side. Again, we're feeling into the whole hip experience, joint spaces and the musculature, and then come back to center. Now take the soles of your feet to the floor, and your feet as wide as the edge of your mat, and then let your knees move back and forth softly. Now the same thing is happening. That hip is lifting. One hip is lifting as gravity and the weight of your legs moves back and forth. So feel how much freedom you have in your hips this morning. Most of us have probably been playing outside, summertime, we're hiking and riding, and we do a lot of work in the hips, even just standing. Great. Next time your knees are over to the left, reach your right arm up and long, and you can take your gaze over to your right hand. And then slide everything back to center. Let your knees fall to the right and stretch your left arm up and long. And perhaps you can gaze up at the left hand. And just move back and forth in that little pattern. So the knees fall in one direction, opposite arm stretches long. Slide that back. Knees in the opposite direction, reach long, good. And then make it an even count, both sides, as you finish up. Yeah, great. Coming back to center now, bring your right knee into your chest, left leg long, unless that bothers your low back, and you can always bend the left knee and take the sole of your foot to the floor, but pull the right knee into your chest and then just make some circles through your hip. So take your right hand on your knee and just circle through in one direction and then the other direction. And then just take that leg to the floor and bring the left knee in. Same thing, kind of give it a squeeze first and then make this circular motion through your left hip and bring some awareness to the asymmetry in your own body. And love it because it is your body and your signature. And then how can you create a whole out of these pieces? Take your circles in both directions. And then you can release that foot back to the floor. Take both feet to the floor, soles of both feet to the floor. And here now, we've done this many times, a little pelvic tilting. So as you inhale, draw your pubic bone away from your navel, creating some length all along the front body. Then your back will move away from the floor slightly, and on your exhale, draw your pubic bone back towards your navel. So now as you feel this same thing we did when we were quietly just resting, as I inhale and I expand, can I also feel the grounding through my hips? They're still touching the floor, the grounding through my upper back. And then as I exhale and ground, could I also experience some expanding? So working in those opposites. So inhaling and exhaling, just go at your own speed and start to get a sense of how your low back might feel today. I got to sleep in a bed last night. That was very exciting. Great. And then from here, we'll come to sort of a neutral spine. So maybe you could slide your credit card underneath your the small of your back, but not too much more space than that. Then we'll bring the lower legs parallel to the floor and stack your knees over your hips. Yep. And then bring your hands right in front of your heart in prayer. Okay. And on your next exhale, just lift your head and shoulders off the floor. So a little curl, and inhale will take you back down. Now pull your toes back towards your shins and put some brightness in your feet. So each exhale will bring you up, and you'll do a little mini sit up here. And then each inhale will bring you back down. Okay. And if this is too much, you could have your hands on your head, just holding the neck, keeping the neck from doing too much work. But here's the exercise. And we'll do, let's do 8 more of these. Exhale brings you up, draw the navel up and in. Inhale takes you back down. Feel the even pressure of both sides of your hips, of your pelvis, into the floor, grounding you. Yes, good. Okay, and after you did your 6 or 7 or 10, whatever works for you, 8 was my magic number, then we'll come back down, rest your head, take your arms out to the side, keep your legs where they are. Good. Now, just let your legs move over to the left, but keep your right shoulder on the ground. And then inhale to come back to center, and then exhale, draw the navel up and in as you drop knees to the right. Keep your left shoulder grounded. So you can feel your obliques working, the side waist. Come back to center one more time to the left, keeping your right shoulder grounded. So you don't have to go very far to feel that. Come back to center, and then knees, legs to the right. Keep your left shoulder grounded. And then back to center. Keep the legs where they are. This time, as you drop your knees to the left, go really slow. Your left shoulder's gonna come off the floor, and you're gonna come all the way over, resting on your knees, and bring your left arm, your right arm to meet your left. So you're stacked up completely. And then inhale the right arm up and press into your left arm as you lift the legs back up to center. Drop your knees to the right. Let your left shoulder lift, and then bring your left arm over to meet your right arm. Good, and you're stacked up completely. Inhale, sweep the left arm up and press into your right arm and come back to center. Let's try that one more time. So the arms are in a T position, legs parallel to one another, lower legs parallel to one another and parallel to the earth. Just begin to drop your knees to the left and take your time. Upstroke the navel, and then the right shoulder will come off the floor. Bring it up and over and meet both arms, both hands. So you kind of come clamping together, and then right arm comes up, press into the left arm really firmly, using the obliques, come back up to center, dropping knees to the right, left shoulder lifts off the floor, and stack your hands and arms together. Inhale, the left arm up, press into the right arm, and come back to center. Good. Let's take one resting breath. So stretch the legs long, stretch through your hip flexors. Good long inhale and exhale. Okay, and now we'll come back, take the soles of the feet to the floor, stacking here. You could do the same thing, or you could try extending the lever. So legs come long, pointing your toes back towards your shins and the soles of your feet like they're gonna stand on the ceiling. And we'll start in with the arms to our side. Now, where you put your arms will help you with the strength here. So you could even hold the edge of the mat, pull on the edge of the mat, but I'm gonna have my arms just out to the side. And then I'm gonna slowly lower my legs towards the left and keep my right shoulder pinned down to the floor. Okay, inhale back to center. Now, if you have any low back issues that are coming up when you do this, you wanna shorten the lever again, okay? So now, legs over to the right, but I keep my left shoulder pinned down to the floor. And then back to center. And then one more time to the left, keep my right shoulder down. You might not go very far, and that's fine. And back, and then over to the right, and back. Good. Now we'll come back to center, and we'll try the same thing we did with the legs bent. So we'll bring our legs over to the left. The right shoulder is gonna lift off the floor. I'm gonna go nice and slow and try to control this. And then I bring both my arms to meet, to touch both hands. And then as I inhale back up, I press into my left arm and try to lift the both legs. All right, a pretty powerful move. So then we drop the legs to the right, and the left arm comes up and over. And then sweeping the left arm up. You might have to lift one leg at a time. I definitely had to end that side. Good. Now pull your knees into your chest and give yourself a little squeeze, a little rock back and forth. Okay, and then we're going to come to this position where we have the legs straight out from the hips. You could rest on your head on your hand, or you could extend the bottom arm and rest on your bicep. Okay, and now my knees are touching and they're stacked together, and my feet are stacked together. And so now I'm going to get into this this top hip a bit. I'm just gonna open up that space, keep the insides of my feet touching, and then close, but don't let my knees touch. So we call this the clamshell. So I'm gonna do, let's say 10 here, just slowly opening the space, opening the clamshell, but keeping my insides of my feet touching one another. And as I come down, I'll resist letting my knees come together. So firing up outer gluteus, the gluteus maximus, the gluteus minimus, probably your piriformis here as well. And then after, you know, depending on how fast you're going, 10 or 20, stop with the leg in the upright position and just hold there until you feel some fatigue in the outer hip. Great. And then from here, you could straighten the top leg. You might need your top hand for a little bounce. Straighten the top leg, pull toes back to shins. And then you can play with keeping the leg in this position, just straight down, lined up with the long edge of your mat, or you could bring the leg towards the front, the top leg towards the bent leg on the bottom. You could come all the way to stacking here and pulse. This would be probably the most work. I'm stacking my extended top leg over my bent bottom leg, and I'm pulsing in here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then sweep the top leg behind, bend that knee, take and open up the front of your leg. Again, you could be resting up on, in, you know, the posing, the magazine pose position. You could be lying on your bottom arm. Good. And then from there, we'll swing around and we'll stack in the other direction. So knees are, upper legs sort of straight out from the hips at 90 degrees, and then stacking your knees as evenly as possible, stacking your feet as evenly as possible, and then we'll open up the legs, close but not touch. Keep the feet touching, but as you work this, don't let the knees touch. So there's a lot of strong work in the outer hip muscles, in the big glute muscles, piriformis. And you might do anywhere from 8 to 20 here. Working there in. Then at some point we'll hold that. We'll hold that, and you can always do more of these later if you like them. So hold that in the upright position, really using the strong stabilizer muscles. Then we'll straighten that top leg and stack it. So we've got it, the top leg is reaching out, pull your toes back towards your shins. You might have to use your top hand for some balance. And then you can play, you could pulse there if you wanted to. You could bring it to about 45 degrees, or you could stack your top leg, extended top leg, over the bottom bent leg, and you could pulse here. If you have any funny sensations in your back, you would want to, you know, back off or bend the knee because the lever might be too long. But we'll pulse for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then sweep the top leg back, bending the knee. Take your top foot with your free hand and stretch open the top of the leg, the front of the leg. Ah, good. And then from here, we're going to roll onto our bellies. And you'll come into Sphinx. So Sphinx, the arms, the forearms are parallel to one another, and elbows are underneath your shoulders. Okay? And then I'm going to slide one of my legs. This is my left, but I'm going to slide my left knee up. So this is frog. I got a frog leg, just one. Right? So one leg up, and then from here, I'm going to reach underneath with the opposite arm. Reach underneath with the opposite arm, sliding the back of my hand underneath, and then I'm going to open up. I begin to twist, keeping the leg down as I twist open, and then I roll onto my back, and that top knee comes up, and then I'm going to extend that leg up in the air, reach my arms behind me, so I'm sort of in a warrior 3 now on my back. And then I'm going to bend that knee, come into goalpost arms, press into my arms, and roll myself back, sliding the leg out and rolling back up to Sphinx. Okay, we'll try that on the other side. I have to orient myself a little differently here. So, Sphinx pose, forearms underneath elbows, slide the opposite leg up. So it's like you're in, it's like you're beginning to crawl, okay? So you've got the leg up, then opposite arm slides underneath, and you start to roll open, keeping that top leg bent as long as you possibly can. And maybe you can get the opposite shoulder down, and then rolling right onto your back, extend the top leg up, reach the arms behind. We're in a warrior 3 position on the ground. Bend the knee, bring your arms to goalpost, press into your arms, press into the hip of the extended leg on the floor, and roll yourself back to your starting position. Okay, let's try it one more time on each side. And I just have to do some moving around. Okay, so Sphinx, and then slide your leg up, and then slide your arm across, opposite direction. Oops. Sorry, same direction. And then you open up, and then the top leg comes up, reach towards the ceiling with that leg, reach the arms overhead so you're in a warrior 3. And then bring your arms to goalpost, bend the top leg if you need to, or keep it straight, but press into your forearms, use your obliques to come back, and open up, sliding that leg back to position, and taking your arms back into Sphinx. We'll try it on the other side. So you start in Sphinx, slide the knee up towards the hip, and then you take the opposite arm, you slide towards the bent knee, so you thread the needle, and then you open up, going for the big twist, and then you come onto your back, extend your leg, reach the arms overhead, the back of your hands touch the floor, you're in the warrior 3, and then you'll bring the arms to goalpost, press into your arms and slide the leg back to position, arms back in Sphinx, and then you can bring both legs straight behind you, right, and relax onto the floor, rest your forehead on your stacked hands. And then we're going to roll back onto our backs. Okay. Here, press your hips into the floor. Feel the evenness through your hip structure. And then stack your legs once more. Lower legs parallel to one another. Knees over the hips. Bring your hands to heart center. Okay. And then on your next exhale, curl up, bringing your shoulders and your head off the floor. Okay. And now you can extend the legs. So you're now extending the legs, and then you could try extending the arms as well. Bring everything back. You could do that a few times, extending legs, extending arms. If you need to have support underneath your head because the neck, it's too much on the neck, just make a little basket with your hands and come underneath the back of your head with your hands. Good. And then back to center. Release everything down to the floor, and very slowly one leg and the other leg, and feel the stretch in your the front of your thighs. Those muscles that just got a little bit of work. And then we'll roll over onto our bellies. Okay. And you can begin just resting. You could bend the knees here and just give a little relief to your back. But now we'll press into the tops of the feet. Bring your hands to your heart center and lift. Now it might be a pretty squishy. You might not have a lot of lift, so you could bring your arms alongside your body as well. Then lift your legs as well. So this is just what we did on our back. We're just doing it on our tummies. Spiral the inner leg towards the ceiling. Now, if you feel that you've got the grit this morning, reach the arms out in front. Keep pressing your pubic bone into the floor. Squeeze the buttocks. And then release. Both hands to the floor. Make a little pillow with your hands stacked. Resting your forehead on the pillow. Bend your knees and slightly move back and forth. And then lower your legs to the floor. Slide your hands underneath your shoulders. Slowly press up till you're in a table position. And then inhale. Exhale, draw your navel in and draw your hips back until you find yourself in the child's pose. And you might have some organic movement that you need to do here, or you could rest in all the way back with the hips on the heels in the child's pose. And then on your next inhale, come back up to table. Okay, so in the table position, we'll go ahead and bring the right foot forward. If you have to come up on your, well, we're going to come up on the back foot. So come up on your back foot and bring one foot forward. And now here, see if you can take your hips, the front hip in particular, around in a circle. So you'll bend through your front knee and you'll just move through the front hip, going in one direction. And then in the opposite direction. Hopefully this is making sense if you need to. We're in a low lunge and you're just moving through your hips. Good. And here then you can take both feet back to the downward facing dog. And then bring your opposite foot forward. Keep the back leg lifted and then move through your hip. Circling in one direction and then in the opposite direction. So this can feel kind of constricted, right? So, you know, you could shorten your stance and just move a little bit side to side. Just work in your body, work in the bodies we have. Good. And then you can step that foot back, come into the downward facing dog one more time. And then let's come to our knees. And this will take a bit of setup now. So if you have a block, a pretty firm block, we're going to use that block. And if you don't have a block, it will work without a block as well. If you tend to have some pain when you put your knee down on the floor, you could have a blanket there. So I'm going to take my block, set it near the back of my mat, and I'm going to position myself. So we're going to set ourselves up with a 90-degree angle in the front leg and a 90-degree angle in the back leg. So you can see if you're looking, I have my front leg. Of course, my sole of my foot's on the floor, so there's my 90-degree angle. I have a 90-degree angle in the knee. And then I'm going to position my back toes on the block. So I'm going to turn my back toes under. And I'm going to have my body positioned so that I can drop my back knee and then straighten everything out by pushing and engaging my glutes. So you could do this without the block on the back foot, just a little extra. So back foot is up on the block, and I bend into my front leg, into my back leg. I'm stretching the front hip flexor here, and I'm really engaging. And now as I straighten my legs, I press, drive the back heel, drive the front heel into the floor, and really use my glutes to engage, okay? So now where does the touching of the knee come in? We could go all the way to the floor, if you can. I don't know that I can, and come straight back up, okay? We could go part way and reach the hand down, and then straighten back up, okay? So if the block is too much, just kick the block aside. Be up on your back toes still, and then drop down, 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 down. I've got my 90 degrees, and then drive everything from the hips back to straight legs. Okay, so here, if you needed to have something to touch the back knee, boom, and then you're back up. Okay, so play with the block or not, a little bouncy. You could have a wall beside you for it. So we'll do, if you've already done a few, maybe pick a number, 6, 8, 10. And as you come up, drive everything from the hips to straighten both legs. And drive, 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 really pressing through the back, the front heel, and the back toes. And press yourself up to standing. Good. And let's come just to Tadasana and shake out the legs. And then we'll try the other side. Good. So I find the block maybe a little bit too challenging for me this morning. So you can just set yourself up. You're thinking about 90 degrees with the front leg when you come down, and 90 degrees with the back leg and both ankles. So I have the ability to see myself to set that up. But I want my front knee when I come down to be stacked over my ankle or my toes. Okay, and then the back knee touches or barely touches the floor. Back toes are turned under. And then I'm gonna drive everything with my hips, boom, as I straighten up. Again, you could be right beside a wall if you needed the balance. Yeah. And again, maybe this side feels a little different. Maybe It feels stronger to press off this front leg. We definitely have those, right, those patterns in our bodies, habitual patterns. All right, so you touch down, maybe you can even touch the back knee down and press up. Now, you could take your hands to the front thigh to help as you press up. Both legs straighten. Or if you wanted to make it a little more fierce, you could bring the arms up and have this longer lever that you got to push up. Boom. Let's do a couple more. Don't hate me. Good work. Balance and strength, stability in the hips. So last one, here we go. And then you can turn heel toe your feet, come to Tadasana, shake out. Maybe you have some wall space. You could open the top of the leg again. Just really stretching there. Good. All right. So now, if you have a block, you could use a block for this. You don't have to have a block. I'll show both of these orientations. I'm just gonna scoot my mat up out of the way because I have some carpet to work on. So I'm gonna use my block. We've done this a few times if you've been doing some classes with me. And I'm gonna step my right foot onto the block and stand up. So as I stand up, I really am pulling, I'm really contracting and pulling the right hip in. So I stand up and I suck that right hip in. I contract the buttock muscles. And then my left foot hovers. I'm hovering my left foot as if I'm standing on a block, but I'm not. So this is where, and if you had something a little smaller than a block, you could use that, a sturdy book. Okay, and then I'm gonna bring my left foot pointed out in the front, take it to the side, take it behind me, cross it behind me. Come back to the side, to the front, cross it in front. You can do all this without the block as well. And then you could try that whole sequence one more time. Standing leg, you're really pulling the hip in. Feeling the engagement of the big glute muscles, piriformis. Back to center, we're not quite done yet, still hovering. So now, if you can, you're going to bring swing the suspended leg forward with the opposite arm, and then see if you can get a pattern. Woo! If you fall off, it's okay. Get a pattern going. Your calf muscles probably starting to say ouch, so at some point we step off. Shake out the legs. Good, and you can come back to this as well. So now let's try the opposite foot. And you know, this might be your stronger side. This might be the side that has more of that potential to pull to midline. So as you stand up on your opposite foot, you hover the free one. Put your hands on your hips and see if you can feel for an evenness of your hips so you're not tilted in one direction or the other. And then from here, come forward, out to the side, behind, cross behind, back, side, forward, cross in front. Ooh, that's a hard one. Back, we'll do one more time, that whole sequence. Back, And don't be surprised if this feels different every day. Come back. If you need a little rest, you could step down. Now we're going to do that swinging thing. So as I get my loose leg moving, right? Just like if I was walking. So opposite arm goes, it's like I'm doing a big hike and I've got one leg still and the other leg moving. No brain work. Whoops. If you get off your pattern, just maybe relax and let your body naturally do it, because this is what our bodies naturally do. They have an intelligence, and we get in the way sometimes with our minds. You'll have a little rotation through your torso, through the upper body. Oh yes. Let it be free moving and relax. Good. Shake everything out. Set your block to the side. Come to your mat. Come to the top of your mat in Tadasana. Inhale and reach your arms up. And exhale, bend your knees and fold through center. So with the knees really bent, let your body drape over, your body drapes over the legs, and then engage in the hips. Engage in the hips like you're kind of squeezing the hips together. And as you do that, slowly straighten the legs slightly. Inhale to a halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana. And exhale, fold again. Place your hands to the floor and step your feet back into downward facing dog. Now you could play around with that again. So that the tightening on the outer hip, like you're trying to pull your hips towards one another. Good. And then inhale, coming forward into the high Dandasana, the high plank. And exhale with the knees to the floor or through full chaturanga. Bring your chest between your hands and lower. Draw your arms back alongside your body. Press into your pubic bone on the inhale and lift. You could take your arms out to the side if you want, or forward. And then place your hands underneath your shoulders. Turn your toes under. Press back up through the high Dandasana and back into downward facing dog. Great. Inhale the right leg out behind you. Now pull the standing leg. On the standing leg, you draw that hip underneath your body. So you really contract the buttocks there. Bend the top leg and stack your hips. It's the bottom leg that really allows for the stacking. So you really pull that glute in tight. And then release. And bring both feet to match on the floor. And then inhale the left leg out, opposite leg. And then draw the foot that's on the floor. Draw that buttocks in. Then bend the top leg and stack. And release. Left foot to the floor. Take an inhale. Take an exhale. And as you exhale and feel the grounding of your feet, can you also feel an expansion? Inhale to come forward into the high Dandasana. And exhale, lower yourself to the floor, whatever works for you. And then on your next inhale, press everything back up and come back into downward facing dog. All right, now inhale the right leg. And as you exhale, so really press into the back toes, lift the back heel and lift the back hip and allow that to sort of press you forward as you bend the lifted leg and bring that foot forward between your hands and come up into a crescent lunge. Keep the back leg lifted. Good. So now we're going to play with what we did on the floor with Warrior One. So we'll lean our body torso forward, and you can keep your hands on your front leg as you bring the back leg forward slightly, and then lift any amount, hands to hips, back leg lifted, back glute really sucked in, standing legs, suck the buttocks in, suck your glutes in. And then if you wanted more fierceness, of course, you could reach your hands out in front of you if you had space, which I don't, right here. But you could bring them out to the sides. Good. Now, to come out of this, bend the front knee slightly and drive the front hip back so you can step back into Warrior One. So we didn't step back to a lunge, we stepped back to Warrior One. Inhale to sweep your arms up, and exhale, hands down around the front foot and step back to downward facing dog. Okay, we'll try the other side. So from your downward facing dog, inhale the opposite leg up and really lift up the back heel. Come up onto the back toes, maybe even round your back as you bend your lifted leg and bring it forward between your hands. If it takes a couple goes, that's all right. And then hands to hips as you come up, press up into crescent lunge. Great. Now you could stay here in this crescent lunge and just work your hips. So you're pulling the outer hip towards the midline. Stay here if you want to. Otherwise, we'll lean the body forward. Maybe take a step. And this might be as you straighten the front leg, your back leg might lift just a little bit off the floor. If you can lift the back leg a little higher, go for that. And we're going for upper body, lengthen the spine. Maybe the arms come out to the side. Maybe to heart center, and perhaps at some point forward. Really working the standing leg, just like we did when we were on the block. And then you bend that front leg and drive that hip back, and your back foot lands in Warrior One. Inhale, sweep your arms up. And exhale, take the hands down around the front foot. Lifting the back leg to give you room, you can sweep the front foot back. Now we're back to downward facing dog. Pull the outer hips to the midline. And then just inhale, coming forward, modified plank. So I'm kind of high in my hips. Drop my knees to the floor. 2 cat-cows. 2 cat-cows. And then as I press into this last one, tops of the feet to the floor, bring my hips back into child's pose. Great. Inhale to press up. So 2 options. We're going to come to hip opening with pigeon. So you can do this on your belly or on your back. So I like to go from downward dog if I'm going to go on my belly. And I inhale, leg out back, and then I sweep that knee towards the same wrist, up towards the same wrist. And then any position of my foot. So I don't have a very open angle here, but my foot's kind of back by my hips. And then I slide the back leg. Really slide that back leg back. And then I come to resting on my front hip. All right, and then I'll turn this way. So most of you know this pose, but if you don't, here we are, front leg is bent, and I'm really trying to get this hip down to the floor. And then I can stretch those muscles by coming forward and coming down to the ground. But this is the same stretch as if I do this. Okay? Same thing, I can come to my back. It's a little more comfortable for most of us, but I can get the same stretch. So choose which one feels better in your body today. So I never, as a student, I would never take this option for years because I, of course, can do everything, right? That's who I am, yeah? And this feels better in my body than being on my belly. So this is the same stretch. I'm now stretching the outer hip muscles, the big glute muscles, the piriformis, and I can, if I need a little bit more, I can take my top leg, like I'm carrying some firewood. I can reach the other leg long. I can do a little core while I'm doing this, and I can continue to stretch this outer hip. So choose what works for your body. It's not, you know, we know that comparing doesn't do us any good. We're working with what we've got. Great. And if you are in pigeon on your belly, you can press yourself up, turn your back toes under, press your hips up, come back to downward facing dog, maybe a few pelvic tilts here, and then you come into the second side. So you inhale the leg up and sweep that knee forward, sliding the back leg. So this version can sometimes be hard on the front knee. So if it is hard on your front knee, you want to go ahead and come to your back and do the same thing. If you find that this hip is picked up way off the floor, it means you need some padding underneath that hip, or you need to do the stretch on your back. And from here, if you're here, you can come into a little bit more of an extended upper body, so you're resting on the floor. And again, it's the same posture as this. Same stretch, same benefit. Not one thing better than the other. Feel the work that your hips engaged in today. If you're not on your back already, you want to transition from pigeon back to downward dog, and then in whatever way works for you, transition to your back. If you're on your back already, release the figure 4 and bring your legs long. Let your feet fall out to the sides. Press into the back of your head, tuck your shoulder blades slightly under. Feel your whole shoulder blade making connection with the floor. Feel the evenness of your hips underneath you and on the floor. And then return to the idea of asymmetry becoming symmetrical. The opposites in our body becoming serving us as we look at those polarities. So as you inhale and you naturally expand, can you also feel grounding, particularly through your hips? And as you exhale and ground, can you also feel an expansion throughout your body? Let all effort go now as you rest in Shavasana. And just let the earth support you. So finding some stillness, even as we have constant movement. You have constant movement in the body. Find some stillness as you lie, and find maybe some movement in your stillness, or identify the movement in your stillness, watching the breath. The subtle body movement. And as you're ready, you could take your hands and place them on your heart. How grateful are you for the body that you have, and this opportunity to learn through embodiment, to know yourself better through these practices. And what else are you grateful for today? What do you find delightful and joyful in your world right now? And stay in Shavasana as long as you want. Or you can come up to a seat. May all the work, all the effort we put into the practice on the mat, it's just a laboratory for us to take our yoga off the mat, to learn to be stable and strong, flexible, to look at whole and pieces, the polarities in life. It's all just practice for the rest of our day, the rest of our week, the rest of our lives. So may the merit of our practice encourage all beings to unveil the hidden brilliance that lies within us all. Namaste.